Hello, this is a brief presentation about the philosophy behind Welten and a description of the main features. So let's first talk about what is behind it. We thought about what it is that students want to actually learn. Do they want to function in a German-speaking environment by doing things in the German-speaking world, ordering food at a restaurant, buying a train ticket at the train station? Do they see themselves talking to people, having personal relationships, introducing themselves and talking about themselves and so forth? Do they desire to be able to read texts in German, the lyrics of the songs they like, the menus in restaurants, stories, texts, scientific or literary? Or do they want to write in German? And I asked in surveys my students, and I always found that the rankings of these learning objectives differ from person to person. Some of them actually rank reading of texts before going to a German-speaking environment and functioning or talking to people. Others find it most important to connect with people. And so if you look, I think, at the typical programs that exist now, they focus very heavily and address the communicative learning objectives, the functioning in a German-speaking environment and the communicating with individuals. But with Welten, we really wanted to address on top of that, in addition to the communicative learning goals, the literacy goals, because there are some who really prioritize working with texts and being able to read texts on the internet, reading as a means of immersing themselves intellectually, enjoying the texts, like I said, the lyrics of songs. And there's sort of also an aesthetic component to that I will mention later. So Welten focuses on texts as the starting point, because we believe that it's very important to build vocabulary actively. We have focused on high-frequency vocabulary, and we believe that extensive reading is a key strategy in developing vocabulary, especially high-frequency vocabulary. We, of course, want to develop the communicative skills and also the literacy skills. We don't want students in the classroom to always live in this forced subjectivity where they are all of a sudden someone in German all the time. We believe not only that translation is not harmful, but it actually can be extremely helpful in developing vocabulary, developing communicative skills, and developing literacy skills. And there's this component of really enjoying texts on an aesthetic level, on a poetic level. And there's lots to learn if you read extensively. So basically, the difference between intensive reading, parsing the sentence, and extensive reading is that you read the text and you don't let yourself get hung up on that grammar bit or that one word that you don't know, but you go through it and you're empowered by getting the gist of it, and you're empowered by what you do understand from it, because there is a level where you still learn syntax and stress pattern, and if the text is spoken, then on a phonetic level you do still get a lot, even if you're not parsing the sentence for every single detail. So here's, for instance, the first profile, Sebastian. He's a student, and so we begin with a word trail exercise with lots of cognates that make this very first text where a student is introducing himself very accessible, And it's very empowering to have this text, hear someone speak, and immediately get into it and have access to this. So we focus on texts for vocabulary building, especially high frequency. We believe in extensive reading, and we believe that translation can be helpful. High frequency vocabulary are lexemes that occur frequently in written and spoken texts. So if we have, for instance, this profile of a theater stage hand, Volker, the chapter 4, then you might think, so that here's a text where he gets a note from his theater director, and you may say, well, this is vocabulary that is on the higher level, das Theater, die Bühne, die Probe, der Regisseur, Bühnenbild, Inszenierung, Schauspieler. However, we know that these are vocabulary items that occur very frequently in written and spoken texts, even in the context of film and the performing arts in general. These are very important items that give you access to much more discourse in German than some other themes that are normally covered in typical books. So what does Welten look like? We have replaced the typical themes, family, travel, shopping, etc., with a set of profiles. A student in Jena, a designer from Basel, a market researcher in Nuremberg, a stage technician at a theater in Berlin, a DJ in Stuttgart, an architect in the Ruhrgebiet, and so forth. And we have basically, we tried to distribute them evenly across the map of the German-speaking world. We have equal numbers of men and women. We have Migrationshintergrund. We have an Austrian in the Alps, and we have the Basel designer. And so we have tried to really touch on many regions, touch on very many cultural themes through these characters. And so there's a lot to explore in Welten. This is our key strategy, as I already have explained. We go straight to the text, as in this first profile. But then our other texts, we have the typical get into the topic. This is from chapter 3, get into the topic, die typische deutsche Familie. And then we have a text, and we have, following what we call Arbeit mit dem Text, a list of information, and high frequency vocabulary is always in boldface, that helps the reader make the text accessible. So you read and then try to find the information that you need to make the text clear and to enjoy it and get into it. This is our Arbeit mit dem Text. We still have vocabulary displays for high frequency lexemes where the topic lends itself, like for concrete items like clothing or colors, or where it elicits other high frequency vocabulary. For instance, in the context of food, here these Mengenangaben, viel, mehrere, mindestens, ungefähr, wenig. These are very, very important function words that you can practice in the context of food. And it's not so important to know all the fruits and vegetables, but these are very important high frequency lexemes. We still have lots of communicative practice, like this, the partner interview, where you go through first, second, and third person. We try to do a lot of things that have cultural interest. Here's an activity for partners to spend money on things. We have information gap activity, we call it Infospiel, where partners give each other missing information. And then we have, through the Share It discussion board feature in iLrn, we like to do this, where learners share something they enjoy, something they like, and then you can bring it into the classroom and talk about it and bring their personal interest and their personal things into the classroom. And I find this very effective, and students enjoy it very much. So how is grammar presented? We have grammar sections where grammar is presented in English, and then followed by activities that go from easy, inductive, deductive to productive exercises. And then we also have additional exercises in the iLrn, what used to be a workbook. They're called SAM activities, and they are in addition to the textbook activities. They look like this. I really enjoy the recording feature. Those are called voice board activities, and students record themselves in iLrn. And so here's a quick summary of how Welten sets itself apart from the typical programs. We go through these 12 profiles with associated themes and not the thematic chapters. We start each unit with a text. Although we do have vocabulary display, we don't start the unit that way. We practice extensive reading. We focus on high frequency vocabulary. We believe that translation can be helpful. We have lots of communicative oriented practice to develop communicative skills, but also literacy skills. We promote reading and listening. We have lots of audio for most of our texts. And so we really believe that there's enjoyment in listening and reading at the same time. And there's lots of learning that's happening on the level of syntax and poetics, stress pattern, phonetics, and so forth. We have collaborative writing from the beginning. And we believe that Welten replaces the ideal of the monolingual native speaker with the ideal of the resourceful bilingual in the tradition of bilingualization, multilingualization, and that's basically the Welten program. I hope you will enjoy it. Bye-bye.